Hey y'all, 𝗕𝗲𝗱𝗏 here. Thanks so much for joining me today as we are going to take a look at this beautiful knife. This is the Petrified Fish Beluga. Someone gifted this to me, and spoiler alert, I love this knife. We're going to take a look at the good, the bad, the ugly. Before we dive in though, if you would please, down below here, you will see that subscribe button, notification bell. If you'd hit that, I know it doesn't take you but just a second, but man, it helps me out so much on these YouTubes. I sure do appreciate it. And listen, if you need to bail early for some reason, no problem. I understand. Hit that thumbs up on your way out and help your boy Fred out. Thanks so much. I appreciate that. All right. First of all, I am not sponsored in any way, shape, or form by Petrified Fish or Beluga. They did not send me this knife for review. They probably don't know. Well, I'm sure they don't know I exist and have no idea who your buddy 𝗕𝗲𝗏 is. I didn't pay my own money. This was a gift from a family member, and I am certainly very grateful for this gift. This is a beautiful knife. I did kind of pick it out and said, hey, here's a couple of knives that I found on the old Amazons, and if you want to buy me something, you can get me that. Let's take a look at the box, because this is an under $50 knife. So everything you're about to see here, you got to premise it with that. This knife in all its configurations, and there are many different versions and variations on this knife that you can get, all of them under $50, okay, on Amazon. By the way, I do have a link down below. That is an affiliate link, so if you buy through my link, your boy Fred may get $1, and that'd be a cool way to support me. Doesn't cost you anything more, but certainly gives me $1. So that would be a great way to tip your boy Fred. Buy one of these knives, because I think you're going to like it as much as I do. The box. Again, this is an under $50 knife. This is a way cool box. This is cut out across the corner of this box where it has the Petrified Fish name in it. So I thought that was really cool. Then on the inside box, they've got this kind of screen printed glossy black on black Petrified Fish. That's part of their logo. But man, it just keeps getting better. So inside the box comes with a mighty cool sticker. I did test and verify this is in fact a sticker. I think that's awfully cool. Again, part of their logo and branding, kind of cool. Has a Petrified Fish branded microfiber, a very nice one at that. But listen, they include a complete set of extra hardware, extra screws, and on top of that, a set of phosphor bronze washers. So this knife runs on ceramic bearings, but just in case you would decide that, man, I prefer my knife to run on the phosphor bronze washers, you can very easily swap them out, because they have included everything you would need to swap out all that hardware, in addition to the microfiber and the sticker, inside a super cool box that is cut out. So again, sub $50 knife. This thing is already off to a major win in my book. This is a beautiful blue jean micarta handle. If you look online, and that, again, the link down below on Amazon, they have all kinds of different micarta shades and colors and styles. They also have G10 handles. I particularly like this blue jean one. I think this is just beautiful. It's soft, it's smooth, it's well done. It feels great in the hand. It's grippy, but not too grippy. It's like perfect in my book. I love the color, beautiful matching G10 back spacer on there. But again, there's all kinds of different color options you can get. Also different blade color options. So I got the stonewashed blade here. They do have a sandblasted, which is kind of a more matte gray color. Also a beautiful, they come in black wash colors as well. So just a ton of different options. The blade on this thing is a K110, which is the fancy German version of D2 steel. So that's pretty good there. I'm pretty happy about that. Again, sub $50 knife. So let's take a quick look at some of the specs on this thing. I'm going to have to pull out the old measuring stick here, and we're talking about 8¼ inches total length. The blade is about 3.75 to the handle, and really, if you were to measure all the way around that cutting edge, it's every bit of 3¾ inches. I'm going to say 3.8 plus inches by the time you try to measure your way around that belly. The handle itself comes in at just at 4.5 inches. This is every bit a full-size knife, but not too oversized of a knife. You can see the action on this thing is spectacular. If I would hold it tight in my hands. Let's also take a look at the blade stock. So it is a little bit thick on the blade stock, but I'm going to tell you, this thing is a slicey beast. So we're coming in right at 0.15. We're going to round that up and call it a 0.15 up there. But behind the edge, this is obviously a very tall, full flat grind. Let's see if I can get all the way down to the tip of this thing. We're at about a 0.195, I think, no, 0.18, okay? So 0.18 behind the blade. I'm sure it gets a little thicker, maybe up here towards the tip. Nope, not much, 0.185. So it's pretty consistent throughout. You can see the tip is, a little bit reinforced, but not too bad. That is, and you're going to see in a minute, we'll do a little cut test. That's a pretty darn slicey beast. They do, by the way, make a mini beluga that is basically just the same thing, but it comes at a 2.99-inch blade, which is very nice for those people who live in jurisdictions where you can't have a 3-inch blade. You're going to get every bit of that and more. It's probably worth measuring the handle size because this is a little bit over an inch tall. It definitely fills the hand beautifully. I have a size large glove. A size medium is just a hair too small, so I'm definitely not an XL. We'll talk about the ergonomics in a minute. Let's talk about the handle width while we're going ahead and doing measurements. So we're just under 0.6 inches. You could probably round that up to a 0.6. That seems a little wide in measurements, but I'm going to tell you, in the hand, maybe because it's tall, it fills the hand perfectly. It feels really good to me at any rate. Let's take a look at some comps with some other knives. So you will probably know, if you're a Spyderco person, the PM2 and the Para 3. I'm going to try to line these up as best I can on the rear ends so you can see the Para 2 is just a hair longer. I mean, we're talking a fraction of an inch, but basically it is the same size for all intents and purposes. I'll flip that over. You can see it's quite a bit larger than the Para 3. Let's put the Para 2 in that position. You can see by the time you also have this factor of the pocket clip sticking out the rear end. You can see that sticks out just a little bit. So it depends on where you're measuring from. So very close to your Para 2 size. For those of you who like that, if you're a Benchmade guy, you will recognize the full-size Crooked River and, of course, the ultimate bug out that everybody probably has 1 or 10 of. Somewhere right in between these two blades here. So hopefully that'll give you a size of how it kind of compares to maybe some other knives that you might know or have. Let's start taking a little bit of a closer look at this knife. So just mentioned a second ago, has a deep carry reversible pocket clip. I love when knives do this. You can see there's a little bit of a filler tab right there. So you could take this off this side and it tucks on the inside of the scale, so you don't even need a filler tab, just a couple of screws there to fill the holes. And you can very easily reverse this from righty to lefty. That's good. The pocket clip is plenty high enough, but this bill to me is perfect. So no problem fitting over a pair of jeans or even heavy duty work pants. The clip is springy, but stiff enough. It's just the perfect, it goes in on my jogging pants, my sweatpants, just as easy as it goes in over jeans. It doesn't stick up so high that it becomes a hot spot. Again, because you have such a nice full-size handle, that clip basically disappears in there. So I don't know how they could have really done this any more perfectly. You can see the screws are, in fact, recessed as well, so there's not even a snag point there. So to me, this is one of the perfect pocket clips, at least for this knife. As I mentioned, you have a well color matched G10 backspacer. You do have this little lanyard pin in the back, so it's kind of hidden away for those people who like lanyards. Most of us who don't really care for them on most of our knives anyhow. I know there's always a good occasion, but that's nice, easy, hidden away, doesn't become a factor, doesn't take away from your clip or your grip or anything else. So that's really nice. The hardware on this thing is a T8 pivot, T6 body screws, so they could have done a little better. You know, everybody likes to have T8 on the body screws, although I've taken this blade apart. No problem at all. Nothing is sticky or difficult to take in or out. And again, they included a complete second set of hardware inside the box. So just in case you did strip a screw, man, you got a whole nother set back there that you don't have to worry about. Again, Blue Jean micarta scales, I love it. I think they are beautifully done, but there are tons of other color options as well. I actually even like the fact that they've done their little Petrified Fish logo like this in kind of this dark wash on the front. I think that actually looks nice. They've got the screw hole on the back side of the blade. Again, depends on which side you carry it. That is a captive pivot. So this is a D-shaped pivot that goes through the grip and the scales. You can see it is riding on steel liners. But even the steel liners don't really take away from the design or the look and feel, in my opinion. This one is running, as I mentioned earlier, on open face ceramic bearings. I'll put up a little exploded view of this knife kind of all taken apart so you can see what it looks like on the inside. You know, they could have done better ceramic bearings, you know, the closed face type, I guess. But again, we're talking a sub $50 knife that's giving you everything else we've got here. I don't have a problem at all. And as you have hopefully seen by now, this thing is as smooth on those bearings as you might ever want a knife to be. The liner lock on this thing. So this is a nested steel liner lock. I'm going to call it nested. I don't know. This is really just a steel liner lock. It's not really nested because you can see the whole liner. So that's not fair to call it that. It does have this little issue here where it seems to be rather small given the size of the blade tang there. It only looks like you've got maybe 25-30% of that blade tang covered. So that was an initial concern for me. However, I have beat the hell out of this thing. That blade is not coming loose in any way, shape, or form. When you get this thing locked up, it's a vault. I do like the sound of that even. It's got almost a hollow wooden sound. So if you like that, it feels and sounds great and solid. It's not going to have the metal tang of the titanium on steel, but to me, this has a good sound for what it is. Again, my 𝗕𝗲𝗏 scale, so you're definitely going to get that different sound to it. Again, it's strong. There's no lock stick to speak of on this thing. It just, you know, steel on steel, no worries at all. And that sucker is a drop shot. So let's talk about the blade. This is a stone washed. Again, they have a sand blasted version, which is just a little bit smoother, basically the same color, but doesn't have the specks quite so much in it. It looks beautiful, as well as a black washed version of the blade. K110 steel, which is, again, German D2, definitely holds an edge, and this sucker is sharp. We'll take a look at that in just a second. As far as the opening mechanisms, you may have noticed there are no thumb studs on this. So you've got three options. Obviously, this was intended to be a front flipper, and in that regard, it is a good one. It is quite easy to flip. You're not going to fail it. It is too big for the reach over. So you can, well, actually, that's probably the best I've done it here so far is, but it's hard when you grab it up this high to really get that thing out. And that's what happens more often than not. And you don't want to be dropping your blade. So it's not great for the reach over, nor is it good for this kind of finger over. It's just too wide. Really, the scales are too wide. So if you're going to use the front flipper, you're going to use it with your thumb. It's easy to do right-handed or left-handed. It's all the same thing there. The jimping is pretty good. They have carried it all the way up to the top. This could be, you know, a fraction taller maybe, but I'm going to tell you, if you put your thumb right there where the tip of the scales come in and you ride it from there, it is just super easy, and you can almost even slow roll this thing all the way over into the lock position. So that works great. They do have a full-size fuller. You probably have been watching me grab onto it. They did a great job with this full fuller here. This has enough of an edge where it's not sharp, it's not going to cut you, but it allows you on both sides to grab it and do a thumb flip or a spidey flip. What I have discovered is I'm used to like getting my thumbnail under a flipper like that. You can't do that well on this. That tends to fail it more often than not. What I've discovered is the fuller is sharp enough where you just get the meat of your thumb in there. Now, when you're doing a thumb flip, you have to go out and around. You can't push up like on some knives you would just flip them almost straight up. This has to go out and around on your thumb in order to get it out there. You can see it's easy to fail on your thumb. You have to really kind of get used to it. If you owned this knife, you would obviously practice enough with it. It would be easy. Pretty easy to spidey flick this thing on the back. Again, just get the meat of that finger into that fuller, and it's grippy enough where in almost every attempt you're going to get this thing open. So I do that as much as I'll use the front flipper on it. So all of that is very good, easy to do. The jimping is pretty solid. I complained about a knife recently. You can see this is almost recessed, but it's really not. It's right at the edge, and then, of course, it extends up the blade here. So the jimping is actually quite good. It's just sharp enough to hold without being uncomfortable in any way, shape, or form. I love the fact that there's absolutely minimal branding or logos. This is kind of their a logo that's really hard to make out here. I had to actually do a close-up photo to try to figure out what this thing is, because I'm thinking maybe this is some kind of fish, you know, petrified fish. That's kind of their thing, their logo, their brand. It's actually, I think, a charging rhinoceros, but I like the fact that they don't have any kind of big billboarding or branding. Again, they tell you what the model number is, the PF01 and K110, which is the blade steel, again, D2. So I like the fact that there's not a lot of branding on there. The bearings are solid, again, but again, if you like washers, they put a set of bronze phosphor washers in there. The smoothness is beautiful. The sound we talked about. This thing drops shut every time. You've seen that. The detent is really, it's got to be perfect. For that front flipper, it's just enough, not too much. I mean, they did an excellent job on the detent. Blade lockup is solid. You are not going to move this thing left, right, up, down. There is no detent lash. There's no pivot lash. This thing is solid in all positions. The blade came perfectly centered in there. The sharpening choil. So they've done a pretty decent job. I mean, they've certainly made the effort at it. What you can see is that because of the angle, that curvature of where the sharpening comes down to, you probably got at least a good 2 or 3, depends on what you want to do with the blade. If you're going to try to lay it back any more than what it comes stock, you've got easily several sharpenings that you can get out of that. But you know, this is one of those things that it's like they think they're giving you a nice big sharpening choil, but by the time you see where that curvature comes down, it's really right to behind that blade there. But certainly good enough, and again, sub $50. I'll take that all day long. All right, let's get to the cutting part, because if you're buying a knife, you want it to cut. We're going to cut a little bit of paper and cardboard. Again, as I mentioned, I'm going to try to just cut little curls to show you how sharp this blade is. It's one of those that's so sharp, it will cut those curls. Of course, it'll cut through the paper all day long. Even the big wide belly of this thing is just as sharp. So really nice. This thing is going to be excellent for any kind of roll cutting where you say you're cutting rope or anything like that. Let's grab a couple of pieces of cardboard here. So we have just regular cardboard. This thing is an easy cardboard destroyer on any size, shape. It's a D2 blade. You know, most everybody now knows what a D2 blade is. So there you go. Now that I've cut a few chunks of cardboard, let's go back to our paper and see, do we still have that same level of sharpness? And yes, we do. This thing is slicey all day long. Belly nice and sharp. Yee-haw for that. This thing is a sharp cutting beast. It's got that huge belly on it, and I love it. All right, so the downside, of course, to that having that huge belly, sorry, trying to get all the junk off of my table now, is that a draw cut. If you have to do utility cuts where you're drawing, you are going to have to raise your hand up, your arm up pretty high to be able to get that tip down on there. But for anything else, you can do rocking cutting motions, obviously slicing, slice through cardboard, paper, whatever you've got. This is going to handle it pretty nicely. Again, with the exception of maybe a lot of utility cuts where you're doing a lot of draw cuts. But even that, not terrible. You can certainly get to it. Lots of different positions if you want to get grip up and get it like a pinch position. Certainly you can get a full-handed grip this way, get your thumb on the back of that blade, very strong in the push cut way. So ergos, again, just mentioned it, feels good in the hand, pretty happy with that. The clip is not really a hot spot at all. I was worried about that. You always worry about clips, but man, I think it's because just the blade, the handle is wide enough that just kind of disappears in the middle of your hand. You just don't feel it at all. Let's talk about some of the downsides of this knife, because, you know, not everything is just 100% roses. First thing is this big belly. While it's a benefit in many situations, you know, you have a big wide belly blade like this that can tend to want to push out in cuts. So as you're cutting through material, that can want to push that blade out. Again, big slicey blade like this, not usually a problem because it's sharp enough and it's just deep enough. That stone wash is slick. It slides right through the material pretty well, but that's an issue. Again, with the draw cuts, it might be a little bit of an issue there. I don't know if you've noticed this. This has a very late detent. So let's get it up here to the that's where the detent is on this knife right there. So all the way from lockup to down here, this is where it first encounters the ball. That's a pretty big drop. So from there, you can see it's hard to drop. And if you don't get it past that detent ball when you're trying to let it loose, what you're going to do is kind of double clutch it. It's going to go back into lock position. So just hold it long enough to get it past that ball. You can see it's stuck on that ball right there again. So you hold it a little bit more, get it there, and now it drops shut. So a little bit late on the detent. That could have been better. It is a little tricky to open with the Spidey flick because it doesn't have thumb studs. It can be a little tougher. But again, I don't know if I'm even going to call that a downside, because they did such a great job making this fuller sharp enough that it really isn't an issue. I mean, once you know, use the meat of your thumb or your finger, and get your thumb has to go out and around when you flip it. Like, see, I'll still fail it on my thumb a little bit, but I never fail it when I'm doing the reverse flip with my finger. So that, take that for what it is. The blade grind, a little bit uneven. So this may be tough to see, but as it gets towards the belly, that grind gets kind of longer, deeper, versus being quite thin of a grind up here, a little thicker here, and then it thins out again here. It does that on both sides. That may just be a factor of the size of this belly, that radius curve that you've got to get around when you're sharpening this blade. But doesn't affect it any. You guys saw how sharp it is, so that's not a big deal. But, just trying to point out some areas where they could maybe improve a little bit. And the last thing we already talked about was the size of the liner lock. Could be a little bit larger there, but again, I've whacked the heck out of this thing. It is not going to come unlocked on you. So again, all of these negatives are really just, maybe suggestions, I guess. So what do I like most about this thing? I love the size. This is definitely a full-size knife. We already saw that in the size comparisons. I love the shape of this blade. This is a different, big, deep belly blade. It's great for a lot of things. Feels great in the hand. I love the look of it. I love the micarta that they've done. And again, they've got some other beautiful micarta colors as well. I love the minimal branding, the way they've done their logo. I even like having this PF on the front of this pivot. I know some people definitely won't like that, but to me, that kind of makes the knife cool because, again, there's minimal branding here. You can't really tell what that is. It looks just like a blob. You know that must be something, but have no idea what it is. Would I recommend it? Absolutely. I would recommend this all day long. A sub $50 knife with a good K110/D2 stonewash blade. Big, full, flat grind. It's kind of fun to have as a front flipper. I don't have many front flippers in my collection, so this makes it a good one. Very easy to flip with that front flipper. I love all that. Great cutter. Feels good in the hands. I love the style, the look, the feel, the design. The pocket clip is done right. Just almost everything about this knife is great. It's a little bit different. I'm always trying to find you guys something a little bit different from what everybody else is reviewing out there. And again, a full set of extra hardware. Nice little trinkets in the box, the extra set of bronze phosphor washers. How could you not recommend a knife like this? So there you go. I hope that is helpful to you. Again, if you would please down below here, hit that subscribe and notification bell to help your buddy Fred out. I sure do appreciate it. Give me a thumbs up if you like my work here. If not, throw me a thumbs down, but you got to let me know what you think I should do better, and I promise to do. All right, hope you guys are doing well. Otherwise, I will see you on the next video. Thanks. Take care.